Hey folks, if you like what I'm putting out here on Geekdom 101 and want to hear my thoughts on other aspects of geek culture like video games, TV shows, movies, pro wrestling, and more, check out my second channel, World of Geekdom. I will leave a link down below for you to check that out. I thank you and I hope you enjoy it. The Taiyoken, otherwise known as the solar flare, might not be the most powerful technique in Dragon Ball, but it's definitely one of the most useful. When you're stuck in a bind against an enemy that is stronger than you or overpowering you, why not blind them? And the Taiyoken succeeds at that. And on this edition of the Techniques Guide, we're going to look at the solar flare and tell you the whole backstory behind this move. Now, the solar flare is a move that many characters know. Krillin knows it, Goku knows it, even Cell knows it, obviously. But the originator of this move was Tenshin Han back during the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai arc in Dragon Ball and during his battle with Jackie Chun, who was of course Master Roshi in disguise. Now, the name Solar Flare came from the original Ocean dub of Dragon Ball Z and was not the name of the move in the Japanese version. Of course, Taiyoken would be the name, and that translates to the ultimate sunlight technique or the supreme sun fist, whichever translation you want to go by. And to learn about the secrets of this move, you have to go into the Taoist martial arts belief system, the Eastern philosophy of where this entire idea came from. This comes from the Taoist belief of yin and yang, but the Taoists also believe that every human being has this sort of universe inside of themselves, if that makes sense. Now, I'm sure that you've heard of the principles of yin and yang. It's a very common thing that even us in the West know about. Well, this light from this universe comes from the yang part, which represents vigor and power. So when Tenshin Han does the Taiyoken, he's actually emitting his own concentrated yang energy in the form of a bright light, sort of turning himself into a small sun or something that gives off light like a sun or a star. And although this is not thoroughly explained in Dragon Ball, if you're familiar with these sort of principles, you can kind of do your own research about what they believe, what Toriyama knew, and how he incorporated it into the series. So the light that comes out of the body when doing the Taiyoken completely overloads the light sensitive particles, and it's sort of like if you're staring at the sun for a second, then blinking and looking away. It just leaves that imprint and you can't see for a few seconds. But in Dragon Ball, the Taiyoken can leave you blind for more than just a few seconds, giving the opponent enough time to do a move, or possibly even escape the battle like what Cell did to Piccolo. Now, one of the things that gets lost in translation is the way that Tenshin Han in the original manga actually does the move. We all know that to do the solar flare, you have to put your hand sort of by your head or by your face to kind of spread your fingers out and then scream the technique. But when he does the move in the manga the first time, he shouts Shin Suru Senryu Taiyoken, which literally translates to New Crane Hermit School Supreme Sun Fist. Obviously at that time, Tien was representing the Crane School and the Crane Hermit, and the fact that he says the word new sort of implies that this technique had still been developed by Tenshin Han and wasn't really mastered by him by the time the tournament took place, or possibly maybe it was mastered by him, but there are previous versions of the Taiyoken. Either way, when other characters did the move in the future, it was pretty much the same thing. Now, one thing that we do not know is who actually originally developed the move, because obviously Tenshin Han's the first person we see do the move, but was this taught to him by the Crane Hermit? Is this something that was passed down from generation to generation? And if so, then how come people like Tao Pai Pai, who's the brother of the Crane Hermit, was a master of the Dodonpa technique, but we never saw him do the Taiyoken? So is this something that Tenshin Han may have developed with his third eye? We don't have a direct answer, but if you examine the original text of where this whole thing came from, it makes sense because the Taoists and the monks believe that you have to have your third eye open in order to emit the kind of light from your body that would signify the solar flare, the Taiyoken. And what a coincidence that the guy with literally a third eye is the first person to do this move in Dragon Ball. Now, because this technique is based in sunlight, it's not a perfect move and thus it has flaws. For example, when he tries it on Goku, Goku wears a pair of sunglasses, and apparently if you wear just sunglasses, that will overcome the power of the Taiyoken. Obviously, this was done by Toriyama as a gag, as a way to make the reader giggle because of how silly it is, but at the end of the day, it does make sense. If it's solar energy, sunglasses would work in the wacky world of Toriyama. Now, what I find interesting is that when Krillin does this move, his hand positioning is different than when Goku or Tien do it. He actually has his two fingers pointing right at his temple, and I'm not really entirely sure why that is, but either way the move works. So that tells me that it doesn't matter how you position your hands, you have to have them focus on your third eye, your figurative, or in Tien's case, literal third eye, to perform that move. Now, one of the anomalies of the solar flare is that when he does the move for the first time, for some reason, his master, the Crane Master, Suru Senin, and the tournament announcer are not affected. What do they have in common? They're both wearing sunglasses. So Toriyama was foreshadowing this gag sort of very subtly before Goku actually did it. And I love how Toriyama gave us that hint because I did not pick up on that the first time reading the manga or even watching the anime version. And when you go into the DBZ portion of the story, the move continues to be useful and continues to be used by much of the Dragon team. Goku used it against Vegeta, Krillin uses it against Dodoria and Second Form Frieza, Cell uses it against a whole bunch of people. Now, when it comes to Dragon Ball Super, the Taiyoken was not only used in the series, but also upgraded. In Dragon Ball Super episode 84, the episode where Gohan and Krillin were training for the Tournament of Power, we see that Krillin developed a new version of this technique called the Hyakubai Taiyoken, which translates to Taiyoken times 100 or solar flare times 100. And this move is interesting because we did see Krillin use the move in Dragon Ball Super against, I believe, Universe 4. But what I find interesting about this technique, this upgraded version of Taiyoken, is that not only is it more potent, but also apparently based on statements made in Dragon Ball Super, not only does it blind you, but also it prevents you from sensing ki for a limited time. This makes the move even more useful. Now, I am unsure if Taiyoken times 100 actually means you're harnessing the power of 100 different suns. I don't know about that kind of lore, but just the idea that you can actually stop someone from sensing ki, that could be a victory, a quick victory in a dire situation if used properly. And to me, I love the fact that Krillin was able to develop this version of the move on his own, presumably without the help of any new master. And to me, that just shows the martial arts prowess of Krillin even past Dragon Ball Z. The guy was still working on things and little tricks here and there to use in the future. So the move will always have a use. No matter how powerful your opponent is, the solar flare, the Taiyoken, is effective enough to work. With that being said, I will bring this video to a close, and I hope you learned more about the solar flare and its original sort of inspirations behind it, the whole Eastern philosophy thing. I find that stuff to be very interesting. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.